Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Art and this is the Bookshelf Odyssey. And I want to take a couple of minutes here. I know we're in the middle of October and talking about all the wonderful things about Victorian literature, but can we handle a little bit of Jane Austen? I'll try to tie it into Victober. I had some thoughts on the subject of adaptations after a book I've just finished reading, and I want to talk to you about it because I just read a marvelous book called Sense in Second Degree Murder by Tirzah Price. I interviewed Tirzah on an episode of my podcast not that long ago for Jane Austen July, and really enjoyed the first book in the series called Pride and Premeditation. And this one is the second book. It's not a connected series necessarily, but each book is an adaptation of a Jane Austen novel set still in the Regency era, and it involves like a murder mystery. So think of it almost as a cozy mystery with reimagined Jane Austen characters in them, and it's a fantastic series. And I want to also bring up the Persuasion film again, if we can handle talking about that, because it really has me thinking about what works for an adaptation and what doesn't. Now, Sense in Second Degree Murder not only worked, it was a phenomenal book, an excellent adaptation. You know, I love adaptations of classic works. Some of my favorite, Shakespeare is watching films that set Shakespeare in a modern setting or a different setting. For some reason, that change helps me understand the original source material better. One of my favorite examples of this is David Tennant's Hamlet, or Patrick Stewart's Macbeth. That one especially is an incredibly well done production. So I especially love it when they try to put an old story into a modern setting. My example of the high watermark, if you will, is Clueless as a modern adaptation of Emma by Jane Austen. That to me has set the bar high for modernized adaptations, and I think it still is a film that holds up well today. All right, so I just finished reading Sense in Second Degree Murder, and I got inspired just to turn the camera on and talk about this book. Sense and Sensibility is not one of my top favorite Jane Austen books, but her adaptation, Price's adaptation, it was so well done that I thoroughly enjoyed the story. Let's talk about the book first of all. This book reimagines the story of Sense and Sensibility. It's still set in the Regency period, but there is a bit of a twist. The Dashwood's father didn't die of natural causes. He was murdered. So, of course, Eleanor, Marianne, and Margaret set out to solve the murder. And at first, they don't realize he was murdered. He was poisoned, and the story then goes into explore the opium trade, things like that, some of the issues of the time period, but they do it with this modern twist of these three sisters solving the crime of their father's murder. So they are given some modern abilities. Eleanor is a budding chemist. Marianne has helped her dad, who was actually ran a private investigation agency. Margaret wants to be a writer, and she's probably going to grow up to become like a Penny Dreadful kind of writer, or somebody like Mary Elizabeth Braddon. That's kind of stories she's drawn to. So really delightful characterizations that yet still feel familiar to the characters you find in the book. But there's enough changes there to make them feel modern. And I think that's one area that the Persuasion movie got very wrong, is in the way they characterized some of the characters, most notably of Anne Elliot, the main character. So there's enough modernism here that Tirzah Price just is able to flawlessly stick into the novel. So it feels like a modern adaptation, but still holding true to the spirit and character of the original novel. The murder itself is a good murder mystery. It involves poison deaths, opium, and all kinds of scandalous activities, but none that would be inappropriate for anyone of any age to read. I think this is actually a young adult novel, but it makes all in all an enjoyable read that I am hoping will help many people discover Jane Austen for the first time, which is, again, a great hallmark of a good adaptation. My favorite part in the book is towards the end, probably the last third of the novel, and Price kind of rewrites the scene where we know from the original where Mary Ann confronts Willoughby at a party, and we're all familiar with that heartbreaking chapter in Sense and Sensibility where Willoughby just basically ignores her and hardly gives her the time of day, and it's heartbreaking. In this book, that scene is done with I gotta be honest, with much more satisfaction than in the original, because there were things that Jane Austen was pretty progressive for her time, but she probably wouldn't have written a scene where Mary Ann, let's just say, gives Willoughby what he deserves. But I feel like fans of the original book and people who hate Willoughby will very much like how she plays that scene. And again, this works because Tirzah Price is not saying this is a story of Sense and Sensibility, like Persuasion tried to do, saying this is the story. No, she's acknowledging this is an adaptation. This has modern twists to it. And here's how this would have played out if Mary Ann had more of a modern woman about her, and not to say that Jane Austen didn't write about, progressive women. I think her characters were probably considered to be progressive for the time period. What follows that scene is one that is so well done. It's not really spoilers, but Mary Ann, of course, in the book, she gets sick and near death. And then in Second Degree Murder, she's also wounded and is near death. But fortunately, Colonel Brandon, who is in this story a doctor in training, comes to save the day and may or may not begin to develop feelings for his young patient. I love that the character personalities remain similar to what they are in the original, but there are some very obvious modernizations to them, but it doesn't conflict with who they originally were. And I think that's why this book worked, whereas the film failed. That's one area. And I also love that this book is not just a rehash of Sense and Sensibility. Like I mentioned in the interview, it's not just like Pride and Prejudice and zombies, where the zombies are crammed into the story. But she manages to create an original plot while still hitting the beats of the original novel that she's paying homage to. So, which then got me thinking about the Netflix adaptation of Persuasion. Now, I know probably most of us have watched it by now, and we've come away burned or angry or upset that we've even wasted that amount of time watching the film. And, you can see my review of it. I'll also have that posted down below. There are some things about it that I thought were good, but overall, I think personally, I think it failed for what I look for in adaptations. And of course, we can always talk about that more in the comments. But the reason why I think Tirzah Price's adaptation worked, it comes down to this, that Tirzah Price understands the books and she understands the readers. And now not every reader is going to like this. It's not going to connect with them, and that's fine. We can't appeal to everyone. But I feel like Tirzah approaches the material with respect and reverence that it deserves. And also she understands and respects the audience for whom she's writing. Perhaps that's where the film failed, is that they thought maybe modern audiences wouldn't understand what's going on, so they dumbed some things down. They put too much of a modern twist on it. They tried to portray it as the actual novel, but then added so much modernism to it. It just felt so disjointed to me. Tirzah Price does the adaptation, I think, personally, I think flawlessly. When I think of a modernized adaptation, I'm going to think of this series because she's able to add the elements into it that help you understand that this is her twist on an old story. There's some thought-provoking moments. There's some truly passionate moments that don't feel forced or modern or dated. And can I just say that Colonel Brandon can make me swoon in any adaptation I've seen of him? Okay. A wonderful scene, the surgery scene when in the book when Brandon is saving Marianne's life. It is so compassionate, so tender, so dramatic. It's all the things I love to see in a story like this. It's just so good. Anyway, back to the film. The film, to me, and this is again just my opinion, but it felt like it disregarded the original source too much and modernized things too drastically for the story they wanted to tell, and that they did it so that they could just go for the laughs and not have any real thoughtful commentary come out of it. I think it would have been better for the Persuasion film to be set either in the modern time, or if they wanted that Regency setting, they could have done something like Tirzah Price did, just completely change everything about it in the book. And, I'm not saying she should have made it a murder mystery or whatever, but, I don't want to question the motivation behind the director and the writer. Any movie experience is going to be hard work and passion and labor is put into it. But when you get to it, she tried to change, the director, the writers tried to change fundamentally who the characters were and the setting they were in without any recognition of that. And I think that's probably where it fails. Tirzah Price's book manages to do that, like I said, flawlessly, in my opinion. She's able to manage that perfect balance between the original and parody, the original and modernization. And she does it with thoughtfulness, love, and appreciation for the source material and for her intended audience. And so again, the book I read is called Sense and Second Degree Murder. I highly recommend it if you love mysteries and adaptations and retelling of stories. This is a good one. And you don't have to read the series in order, as far as I know. But I'd recommend both, and I'm looking forward to more of what Tirzah Price will write. So that's all I wanted to chat about today. Make sure you like and subscribe. I do have some actual Victober content coming out soon, so stay tuned for that. I've got some things filming and editing right now, so it'll be coming your way. So thanks again for watching. Let me know what you thought about my rambling thoughts today, and we'll keep the conversation going in the comments below. So until next time, take care. Happy reading.